Good morning. Yeah, I woke up about 20 minutes ago, half hour ago. It's now like 8 o'clock. For some reason, I was thinking it was like 9, 10 o'clock when I woke up. I didn't realize it was actually just a little after 7 when I got up. I think I was in bed probably by like 2 or 3, something like that. Seems to be the norm anymore, at least. Now I gotta start getting. I gotta get the generator and uh, some of my grandpa's tools that are still here loaded into my truck, so that way when I head back north I can take that with, so that way it's at least up there. I just want to be done with all this shit really bad, and I'm just at the point that I'm just ready to put my energy into other things and other people, basically. I can't deal with my head being messed with any longer, and when trying to communicate, it's just pointless. I don't want to be with somebody who thinks it's okay for them to keep doing what they're doing behind your back, and you're supposed to just turn a cheek to it. And I also don't want to be with somebody who allows family to dictate the relationships and all that shit too. It's a various mix of things, but it's like, no, if you're gonna be with somebody, you're not with them whether or not your family approves or not. That type of shit. I get it in some degrees when you're, with some people. I do get it. I get it when your friends and family, hey, they start stepping in and interfering. But when they're doing so based on bullshit, shit talking and lying, I don't want a relationship with someone like that. Especially when it's the person that I was with that was doing the shit talking and lying. And yeah, I just don't want to do it anymore. I gave myself completely to somebody who was sharing her. It was sharing with other men, and it's like, no, this is not okay. All for the approval of mommy dearest, and wanting to get attention like her sister gets, and it's like, are you fucking kidding me? Spend all this time talking shit about your mom and your sister too, and it turns out you're trying to be more like your sister and to impress your mom because you need your mom's approval. And it's like her sister sort of grew up, and yeah, she probably she like everybody they do dumb things once in a while, but no, I just don't see her sister being that stupid anymore. I actually do have respect for her sister, of all things. I actually really don't have anything bad to say. When it comes to her dad, I really don't have anything bad to say other than the fact that he was misled by my older son and his mother into thinking that I'm this big fucking abusive monster when I'm not. I wish my children have gone through. It sounds bad to say this, but I wish they had even gone through half of what I went through growing up, let alone half of what my parents went through growing up as a kid, for them to run around and scream abuse. Most of these kids these days can't be verbally corrected without going around and talking shit about their parents, saying my mom and dad are mean and abusive because they yelled at me, or because they lectured me for 2 hours instead of spanking my ass, or using a kitchen tool to beat my ass like my mom would have done and did do. Neither one of my boys can recollect a time that I picked up a belt, a hanger, a kitchen cooking utensil, anything, and spanked or beat them with it. Neither one of them can pull out a time out like that. The one time I got my younger son, I felt really fucking bad for because he wasn't actually in trouble. I had towel snapped him and I didn't realize I had a mean towel snap, and after that I was like, no. I went to pick on my son a little bit, and because growing up, we'd give each other a hard time, with him growing up, yeah, he was a damn good kid. But we got along. I love my son. I miss my younger son a lot. But I'm also realized that relationship was destroyed because of my ex's shit talking and her child's shit talking. Our oldest son, that is. I wasn't a horrible dad. I didn't believe in spanking my kids, even though, with the way I've been treated here the last 4 or 5 years, the way I've been made out to be, it makes me feel like maybe I should have spanked my kids. I should have spanked my kids. Then they could go and claim that their dad spanked them when they were a kid. My younger son was one of those kids, and this is, what I actually loved about him, because it told me that he was going to do better in life than I did. And he was one of those kids you couldn't take his video games away, and leave him with books, because he loved his books probably more than his video games. And so he'd sit and read a lot, and so you couldn't really do anything like that. You couldn't leave him with, pretty much he would find a way to entertain himself, even if he had nothing. And that was the kind of kid he was. That was just, whether that might have been an annoyance for some parents, for me, it was a recognition that my son was not just, starting to become a free thinker at the time, to think for himself instead of letting other people think for him. But he didn't rely on games, TV, stuff like that to make him happy. That made me proud of my son right there, when, whether he knows it or not, which I know he doesn't. Sorry. I just woke up. But he was always a good kid. I never really had a problem with him. Anytime I corrected my kids, I didn't like spanking or anything like that. That was the thing that I didn't resort to. I mostly sat and lectured my kids. I'd give them a nice hour, 2 hour long lecture to annoy the piss out of them, drive them a little bit crazy, and leave it at that. And I didn't carry it on the next day or the day after or anything like that. It was left where it was at. I just didn't believe in doing half that shit. I mean, when it came to my oldest, you couldn't ground him for nothing, because his mom and stepdad at the time, or grandmother, would undo it and reward him and all this shit. He was taught that he could basically hurt his dad and his grandparents on that side of the family and get rewarded for it, and treat them like shit and still go home to trips to Hawaii and shit like that. Yeah, about time I treated my family the way I was treated by my son and all that, my mom would have beat the shit out of me. I had My mom had her abusive side to her, very much so. Yet my mom, of all ironies, equally as much, like, I don't know how she did it, but she did, still held moral values when it came to family and shit like that, and relationships. It's a weird combination where my mom's concerned, but yeah, I tried to take away the good take away with the good, and leave the bad behind. Basically, is what I tried to do with my upbringing. I tried to do the things that worked for me for most part growing up, and what didn't work on me. I wouldn't do. So, like, instead of beating my kid's ass every time they joked around with me to get, being little sarcastic little shits, they never got that. They never got their pants ripped down to their fucking ankles and beat right in front of their aunts and uncles and cousins for joking with their parents, in particular their mom. But my mom would have never put up with me treating any of my grandparents, whether it's my dad's side or her side. Even if it comes to my dad, she would not have allowed me to be that kind of a fucking prick to my dad and his side of the family. She would never allowed it. My dad would have chewed my ass out left and right from one end of the street to the other. My mom would have literally beat the shit out of me basically for doing that. It's like, no. Families are gonna have their fights. They're gonna have their disagreements and stuff like that. But family doesn't go around destroying each other like my family has done. When it comes to my mom's side of the family. That's why I don't really know my aunts and uncles or anything like that. I haven't really known them since I was like 9 years old. And that's when my brother went to prison. That's when he ended up in the state hospital and then from there went into prison. That was when all the shit started coming out. And like I said, my brother got away with what he did to me. And my family on my mom's side had no clue what my brother did to me all that time. And they just kind of... They kept trying to put me in the same bucket as my brother. And the argument is if everyone who's been abused turns into an abuser, then that means every one of them who were abused by my brother also would be in that bucket too. Out of all of them, I was the one who got extensive amounts of help for what I went through. And it was beyond just the abuse I went through with my brother. It was the abuses that I went through with my mom, the mental and verbal shit, down to some of the physical. My dad, it was mainly just the alcoholism on his part. My dad was mostly quiet and all, but he was also extremely passive, and he would allow my mom to basically do what she wanted. It wasn't until after a while that he started putting his foot down, and then she'd go around and go, "Oh, my husband's a slave driver. He doesn't allow me to, shop or buy anything." Yet the house is, every year, every other year, having to be emptied out from shit they bought from Goodwill or Amazon or something. My mom's a cork. My dad's a cork. I love them both. I just don't love the things that had went on when I was growing up, just like the next person. I don't know anybody who can't look back onto their childhood and recollect even at least onto one moment that something bad happened, between them and their parents. I know with me and my two kids, with my oldest, is when I ended up smacking him. I broke down and I smacked him. One time I smacked him, and I accidentally started giving a bloody nose. I think he was on his left side. I felt really bad. Immediately, it took me back to my childhood when my mom smacked me in the middle of Fred Meyer's while I was in the grocery cart, and just all this blood just started going everywhere. Like, my mom got me good. When it came to Kenneth, I felt really fucking bad after that. That's why I never ever raised a hand on my kids. Christian, it was that towel snap. I felt so fucking horrible after that. I mean, yeah, we were laughing, but I felt horribly bad. Especially when it looked like, someone took a sewing needle and just poked him in the butt cheek to draw blood. It was like that. I felt really fucking bad. That's why, no, I won't punish my kids. I felt like shit like that when it came to punishing, I wouldn't punish my kids that way. I just wouldn't. The one time I smacked Kenneth and then the one time I towel snapped Christian, that wasn't even a punishment. It's like, no, I am never stepping those lines. There's other ways that we got to correct these kids. I know when they're really young, you just pop them on the butt. And for those that are younger than me that don't understand the difference between popping, spanking, and literally beating on your fucking kids, That's that one little pop over the diaper, just enough for them to get startled and they walk away. And it's for them to understand basically the word no. And you mean it. Spanking is spanking, whether you've got that kid's, that kid's still got his, pants on getting spanked or whatever, or it's spanking and spanking. Bare flat hand. When it comes to beating your kids, to me, that's if you use any type of fucking weapon. Or a closed fist, which is a fucking weapon. In the end, I don't believe in striking your children. I believe that's a very much so a last resort, and there's usually always a different alternative. My kids hate me because of people talking shit. They don't hate me because of what I did to them. They hate me because I'm not rich enough. My oldest was taught that money is the lifeblood, is a lifeblood, and my younger was influenced by that, and even by his other half's family and all that money is everything. And it's like, money's a tool. It's not everything. It's just some people have a drive for certain. There are people out there who have a drive for money and they intentionally do things to get a lot of money from either hooking themselves to fucking running a business or acting, whatever it is that they chose that helped them get wealthy. And I would say about half those people really actually give a shit about the money that they got. They, in the sense of, they probably realize it's not everything, and I just don't know necessarily how to explain that part other than it's what do you call it? It's no object to them. Some of them recognize it's just a tool to get through life. Where at one time we might have needed to go out and either grow a bunch of shit or build some stuff or go kill some animals just so we can take the skin off their bodies. At one time humans had to do that when it came to needing money. That was their money. Beads, pelts, spices, food, that type of stuff. Barter trade is what we call it now. Got the window open and all that stuff, but so I mean, people had to do the work to get those things, just as they have to do the work to get cash in that sense. Which I totally understand that shit. I also understand that we put certain systems in place that we've created as a community and a society that was put in place that where people have work and put into who work. And yes, I'm not a big fan of, hey, let's tax the shit out of people. But I do what do you call it? I do, whether you call it a fan or what, I do support the idea that people who are paying into a system, taxing, when it comes to Social Security, even though when it comes to Social Security, there needs to be a lot more restrictions. You've got SSI and SSD. And SSI, the Social Security Supplemental Income, that's heavily abused by both. How can I? That's been abused by not just by our own American citizens. It's been abused by those who came here legally. Because the one thing that you'll find, like here in Oregon, all you need to do if you're here, you come here illegally, all you have to do is bring in a piece of mail, and you can apply to get your driver's license. You can apply to Social Security to get your, all that shit. And if it comes to, yeah, some of them, their kids, when they're born here, get their kids right onto it. And that SSI out of Social Security, that's what's being abused the most. SSD, it's harder to abuse because in order to get that, people actually have to work. You have to earn that. So for what I got, I had to fucking earn it. I had to work my fucking ass off. And it's not like that was my goal. It's just I ended up disabled at the age of 20, 21. And looking back, hindsight wise, if I knew better then, let alone combination of things. If I wasn't on spectrum, or at least knew about it back then, was properly guided with it back then, I realized that if I had enough mental maturity back then, I wouldn't have allowed my mother to uh, talk me into applying for disability. And I allowed my mom to talk me into that. Because she's the one who dragged me into these different doctors, and then the doctors would, instead of listening to what I had to say, what was going on, my mom would tell them all this shit, and then they would work their diagnosis from that. And so at one point they even had me labeled as schizoaffected. And when they start giving me the medication for that stuff, they start fucking my head up really bad. And it wasn't until, because that was a diagnosis when I was like right around 17, so still a minor at the time. I had this problem where my mom pretty much dressed me up until my freshman year of high school, and that's when I began to rebel. And started, I started, of all things, getting hand-me-down clothes and shit like that between friends and going to thrift stores. When I was working and all that stuff, like, anytime I was working, yeah, I'd buy some of my own clothes. But, yeah, no. And did the same thing just like the next person. But, yeah, my mom was the one that talked me into it, because she's like, well, you're diagnosed this, you're that. She got me to believe I was crazy. It wasn't until the doctor after that and all that shit that I was talking to when I was able to see the next doctor after that. They're like, I've worked with a lot of people who were diagnosed with this, and you don't have these traits. Like, you don't hallucinate shit, verbal or auditorial. You don't have a split personality or whatever. Yes, I was dealing with a lot of depression, and they also took in consideration of what those prescription drugs were doing to my brain as a kid, that they were prescribing me that for something I didn't have. The medical system was fucking with my head. My mom was fucking with my head. And then over time, it turned into my kid's mom fucking with my head. I don't want people to think that I'm trying to portray myself as perfect because I did stupid things growing up. It's just after I was like 18, 19 years old, right in there, I battled with my addictions and got through them. But it was after I turned 18, 19 years old is when I began cleaning my shit up. That's when I was like, I'm not a little kid anymore. I can't go pulling shit like I would have done possibly in high school or in junior high or elementary school, what have you. I had to straighten my shit up. That's why when my current ex kept accusing, literally kept calling in and making false reports, and there at first, after she threw me in jail on 2 occasions for shit I didn't even do, I wasn't even here. I was 300 miles north. Um, Not only did I end up proving my innocence and all that stuff, because I was able to prove I wasn't even around, but after that shit happened, they were able to use that to get everybody to believe I was this big piece of shit. I lost track of where I was going, what I was gonna say, anyways, because I'm trying to bury some of this, and I was, and just kind of, yeah. I've been all over the place in this ramble, and I would, in all honesty, oh yeah, that's right. So when they got me in trouble and threw me in jail, there, those couple times not there for shit I didn't even do. My attorneys, when they pulled out my criminal records, I had this folder and it had a single sheet of paper. And the guy and my attorney asked me, he goes, "Do you know what this is?" I was like, "I have no idea." He's going, "This is your criminal history." I was like, "Really?" It's like, "Yeah." Like, other than the times that you interacted with police when you were going through a mental breakdown as a kid, was when I was a teenager. Like, and then these other 2 things, they're like, "You've got nothing on your record." Like, we can see where she made reports on these other occasions, but given the fact that she lied on these ones too, on these more recent ones to have me thrown in jail, they realized that even those previous reports had to be taken as hearsay because she was fucking pulling some fucked up shit. And it's not okay. Misha, you gotta stand back from the heater. You're making it shut off. I was like, "What's going on? Why is the heater shut off?" She'll hug the heater, and then the heater will overheat and shut down. But they saw there at the courts that I stayed out of trouble, stayed out of dealing with doing anything stupid like that after I was out of high school. They could see I had interactions here and there, and it led to me going to a doctor because I was dealing with the combination of addictions, prescriptions that were being prescribed that were fucking with the chemicals in my brain. I was being medically treated for shit I didn't have. I had my mom for the longest time up until I became, got old enough where she couldn't do it. Dragging me into different doctors and having me diagnosed with different shit and maybe getting prescribed with different things that was fucking with the chemicals in my head. If I had at least one doctor back then, and it's not like it's anybody's fault because knowledge is very limited about autism and Asperger's and all that. I think there was more known about when it comes to Down syndrome than there was about autism back then. But if I had at least one doctor, excuse me, that knew what it was, I probably would, it most likely and probably would not have gone through a lot of shit I did. I would not have ended up on disability, which at such a young age, which inevitably led to making things harder in life for me, because I was still at the time young enough and still healthy enough that, the NF2 hadn't taken over so badly like it did when I started getting into my mid 30s. So I would have had at least another 10, 15 years that I could have been able to work, take care of my family, and do the things I needed to do. Instead, I allowed somebody to make me think I wasn't capable. And that's what realistically it was, is my mom made me believe that I wasn't capable because I was crazy. My current ex proceeded to do that type of shit. There'd be times on phone calls she was real adamant on getting me to admit basically that I had schizoaffective disorder and I was indigent, as in poor and incapable, let alone crazy. She kept trying to do that to me on the phone here about a month ago. She kept bringing it up over the phone. It's like, what are you doing? You recording shit? You trying to get me to admit to something that I don't have? It's not even in my medical records. All that shit was removed because that was a false, what do you call it? A false diagnosis. And it wasn't even based on me. It was based on my mother's shit. No, I wish I knew that I was on spectrum sooner. There's a lot of things that would be different. It's just I'm having to relearn, pretty much relearn my life all over again in a different manner. I've already gone through the motions of reflecting back and looking at, how I was as a kid and all this shit, and going, you know, now that I know, it all makes sense. What doesn't make sense is the amount of shit that I had to go through and the amount of damages it created, and it wasn't just for me. It created a lot of problems and damages for my family. The meltdowns I was having as a teenager did not help. And we had no way of knowing how to deal with them. I kept trying. I remember when I'd start to go into them, I'd try to leave to go on a walk, and my mom would lock me in my room and keep me from leaving, and that's when things would get worse. And then she would turn around and start pulling the shit of calling the police and having me arrested every time I was trying to leave to get away from the house in the middle of one of these meltdowns, because it was not getting better. It was getting worse, with my mom locking me in my room, blocking doors, like keeping me from getting away. Was trapping me in that house, and would instigate the situations worse, so that then she'd turn around. Yeah, I have a scar on the back of my head from being pistol whipped because of her. Like I said, I could never joke with my mom as a child without having to fear getting spanked or beat. And she thought it was funny too. She'd laugh about it. She'd laugh when other people get hurt. Outright laugh. But all the way up to her calling the police, trying to tell them that I had a weapon that I didn't have. I had a cell phone. And that's what led to me getting pistol whipped. That was the last time I dealt with law enforcement where my mom was concerned. She had me threatened with tasers. I've had dogs released on me. If it wasn't for my jacket and shit that I was wearing, I would have my arm all ripped up. All because my mom wouldn't allow me to leave the house to go for a walk and calm down. And so she'd lock me in the house. She would allow it to get worse, and she would instigate it worse, and then turn around and pull this shit, and then turn around and go to her family to get sympathy attention. Exactly what my ex Melissa would do. Start some shit, instigate some shit, gaslight. As soon as they got the reaction they want, then they turn around and go get sympathy attention from their friends and family. That's why Melissa knows about a lot of shit that my mom did, because she was married. She decided to go bang my cousin and marry him. And so she got to listen to a lot of the shit that was going on that my mom would talk. My mom would go straight to that family. Oh, Jay's been doing this, Jay's been doing that, this has been going on, that's been going on. She made me out the world's biggest piece of shit. That's why I don't actually believe my mom loves me or ever actually loved me. I was just her action figure that she could fuck around with and dress up and manipulate. There was a big competition basically between my mom and her older sister, my Aunt Lindo. And it's a lifelong competition that's never ended about who's the better big sister. I do love my mom. I just really don't like all the shit that had went on. Anyways, I've rambled on about random shit for over a half hour. I don't want to carry this on for an hour. I'm still in wake up mode. Um, yeah, it's... Yep. Sorry, I gotta clean my windows and all that dog noses. But, anyways, no, I'm gonna try and when I go back up to visit this weekend, I'll make the decision or not of whether or not I'm moving back up until the home sells, or if I'm just gonna do what I used to do, and that's make that once a month trip up to go visit family, to go see everybody, well, to go see my folks. And I am worried about my mom. Of all ironies, after everything you just heard, I am worried about my mom. I recognize it's a weird dynamic of a relationship, but I do love my mom, and I'm worried about her because of, well, with her health. In all honesty, I'm getting worried about this possibly being the last Christmas I get to have with my mom. Because she started doing really good there when she's at that facility. She's all this stuff, so it's like, and then when she gets back to the house, it's right back to sleeping all the time. And when she's awake, she's not all there anymore again. She's checking out again. And I think a lot of that has to do with the loneliness that she goes through there. She doesn't have much human interaction. My dad loves my mom, but he'll take her out here and there, and then, like the other day took her out, go get haircuts and stuff. And it's just, she's not getting a whole lot of that human interaction. A lot of it is coming from the aspect of family and all that. I don't know if relations between her and her siblings are getting better or not. I'm not sure, because I stay out of that mess. I try where some of my cousins are concerned, but then I end up blocking them online, because I don't know that family really, and I'm not sure who I can trust. I don't know who my family is. I know who my relatives are in that sense by name and all that stuff. A lot of them I will not recognize by face. Only a handful of them I will. And it's just been that long. It's been 30-something years. And the last time I saw them was at one of my cousin's weddings, and I didn't even know who 90% of the people were. So I know when I go back up there here this weekend and all that stuff, I'm gonna also get to go see my buddy Nate, and then possibly go be meeting up with another person. Somebody I haven't seen in a long fucking time yet. At the same time, I don't know what's happening with that, because it's different to me, and it's I'm not sure if it's what it's about. Part of me is afraid that I'll learn things that I don't want to learn or I've already learned, or could be something totally different. I'm not 100%. I'm still going through the healing process and all that, and it's only within the last couple weeks or so, well, over the last month, that I started considering opening my options up, because I'm getting tired of being told we're together, we're not together, we're together, we're not together, and this was literally day by day. And yeah, unlike them, I'm not the type of person to go find someone, go cheat, and come right back and go, I miss you, I love you. You don't do that stuff. No, we're done. The relationship's been over for a long time. And all she's done is just string me along. Strung me along for a long time to use me, and fucked my head up really bad in the process and all that. The abuse that I went through from her, being a fucking narc, I'm not I'm not risking it anymore unless they're willing to actually make an effort, but they're not. They say they are at times when they, oh, I miss you, I love you, and all that, want to manipulate me back into the picture, but they're not going to make an actual effort. So it's like I've still got healing to do, and I've still got some baggage to deal with, but I'm ready to move on. You know, I've waited 5 years for that person to pull her head out of her ass and fucking prioritize the relationship, so it wouldn't go to where it's at now. But it's on the basis of money and looks and all that shit. It was never good enough. The moment I ended up back on disability was the moment I got treated less than shit by her and her family. So I'm willing to work, go back to work, all that stuff. I've lost all my motivation. I got drained. I had the life sucked out of me. I would have done more for her if she had stopped doing the shit that she was doing. And so it's like, I come to that realization that if I'm going to give myself that much again to somebody, it's going to be somebody else. And it's going to be hopefully somebody that will actually appreciate me for me, love me for me. And doesn't go basing how they feel about someone on what's in their bank account. I lost my drive and my motivation dealing with all that abuse that I dealt with, especially the last 5-6 years. And the neglect, all of it. Just all this shit. There's just been so much shit. That's why in every vid, it's like it's always, there's pretty much almost something new in each one, because there's so much shit. Like, I could not put it all out in one video. It's been non-stop shit. So yeah, I made the conscious decision. It's time for me to basically move on, because I can't play these games. It's time to allow myself to be able to meet new people, even though I'm afraid of most people. Excuse me. It's time for me to basically say goodbye for good, because I can't keep putting myself out there for someone who really doesn't give a shit, and all they're going to do is just keep using people. And the only way they're going to love you is if you have a lot of money. That's the only way. Otherwise, it's fake love. It's not real love. Loving someone doesn't lead you to abusing them like that. Fucking with their heads and manipulating them, breaking them down, and taking everything about them away that you probably fell in love with them to begin with. That's if you did. I haven't just come to the point. I came to the point that, you know, yes, everything happens for a reason. And I feel like, you know, if it's true, God always saves the best for last, right? She used to bitch and complain, sit there, compare herself to my ex-wife a lot. And then she would make comments like, she may have got the ring, but I got the rest, that type of thing. She didn't get anything. She destroyed the rest. My ex-wife got the ring, but my current ex destroyed the rest of what was left. And I've had to slowly I've been slowly trying to rebuild myself. I've got to rebuild my confidence and all that stuff too. I lost a lot of it. I lost a lot of my confidence. I lost my drive in life. I lost a lot of my inspirations. Like, a lot of things that I used to enjoy doing, I don't do anymore. I had a lot of my joys in life taken away by someone who could never be happy and was a bottomless pit as a human being. Does it make them a horrible person? No. It means that they have some really fucked up habits and beliefs that they need to fucking figure out. And the sad part is for them is God's going to be the one to teach them the lesson, God and karma. Because they're not willing to make positive changes. Certain habits that they keep doing that seem to not ever work for them. And in their head, they think it does work for them because they can use it as a form of getting sympathy from other people. So she manipulates other people. She's manipulated everybody around her at this point. I hope the next person I meet can understand me and allow me to be me. I have quirks. I know I'm awkward. I know I'm a little bit weird. I'm like a big kid stuck in a 42, almost 43-year-old man's body. I do like to watch cartoons here and there. I used to love watching cartoons, but then I started getting basically told that it just wasn't right at my age type thing. I enjoy, video games. I enjoy board games. I've got board games that I haven't even got to play yet because I can't play them by myself. And then I have this one that it's a one-person game, but I'm having trouble figuring it out. Like, I tried to look for it on YouTube, like, to see if somebody else has played it. It's this museum game. But, yeah. When it comes to, like, the stuff I was doing on my Lost in Thought Today channel, my ramblings on there and some of my inspirations and ideas that came up on that I was sharing on that channel, I've kind of lost all that. I lost my muse, basically, and my inspirations, my motivation, my drive. I lost all of it. It was all taken away fighting to save a relationship with somebody that was already having relations with other people. And then going around and telling everybody I was this big abusive piece of shit while she was doing this quietly and secretly without anybody's knowledge until she eventually got caught. And it's still my fault. So, no, I got to keep my faith. I got to keep my chin up. I'm still having a lot of troubles. I'm still hurting a lot. But I know that this can't be all in life, and it's just, it's all I can do is just realistically get better. I have to get better at it from this too, because I don't want to be punishing people by avoiding possibly good people for things that they didn't do or because of my own fears. So, might sound funny, but I definitely need a hug. And a real one. Yeah, anyways, I rambled on even longer than I want to. I'm trying not to go to an hour, so have a good day. I'll probably post up later too or something. Hopefully with a little less bitching. Probably just as much rambling. Take care and try and have a good day, guys.